Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 252 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about the teams that have the best chance to represent the Western Conference in this year's NBA Finals. The Golden State Warriors are currently 2 games above 500 and are the 6th seed in the Western Conference. They have a horrendous 9-29 record on the road, and yet a lot of people still view the reigning champions and 4-time final winners as legitimate contenders. And I think it's because the other teams in the conference are unproven, especially in the postseason. Let's go through the teams. The current number 1 seed in the Western Conference is the Denver Nuggets, who are consistently a great regular season team, but has only gone as far as the conference finals. They have one superstar in Nikola Jokic, who has won back-to-back MVPs. Jamal Murray is a very good point guard, but I don't expect him to ball out like he did in the bubble a few years ago. He's coming off of an injury. He's not that same player. They have one of the best head coaches in the league in Mike Malone. He's a stable presence. And the roster is filled with talented guys like Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., but they are inconsistent at times. Like, nobody looks at this team as a powerhouse in the conference. Nobody views them as one of the best teams in the NBA. They are there, but it's almost by default. Everyone is either going to be proven right about the Denver Nuggets and they're going to be knocked out in the postseason in the second round, or we're all going to look foolish and they are actually going to represent the West in the NBA Finals. I would vote for the former. I think this is a very nice team, but they remind me of the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz under Quinn Snyder would dominate in the regular season. They had great players like Donovan Mitchell, but when it came down to the postseason, they just didn't produce. I think it's particularly tough in today's NBA to win with one sole superstar, and that's what Nikola Jokic is. He's the MVP, but the last team that really won with one superstar player was the Dallas Mavericks back when they won with Dirk Nowitzki. The second seed currently is the Memphis Grizzlies, and there's a lot going on with Memphis that makes you question how they're going to produce in the postseason. At the early realm of the season, it felt like they were a team that could potentially make the conference finals or even make the NBA finals, but now a lot of stuff has occurred. The Ja Morant controversy of it all, you don't know how that's going to play out in the postseason. Ja Morant is back on the team, but by postseason time, is he going to be able to get back to that superstar level and carry this team? They have a lot of good players. Desmond Bane is one of the underrated talents in the NBA. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a likely candidate to win Defensive Player of the Year. They are a talented roster. I just don't know how this team is going to do in the postseason. I would love for a matchup between the Warriors and the Grizzlies because there's a really great rivalry going on there, but I don't look at Memphis and think of them as a dominant team. I still view them the same way I did when they had Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, and Mike Conley. They are a team that does the best with what they have, but what they have just isn't enough for me to look at them and think this team at the end of the day is going to make it all the way to the NBA Finals. I could see the Memphis Grizzlies in the conference finals. I just cannot see them representing the West in the finals. And a part of that is how young and inexperienced the roster is. Like, these are not the type of teams that make it all the way to the NBA Finals. There are rare exceptions, like the Kevin Durant-led Thunder team, but that team had 3 future Hall of Famers on it. Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. This Grizzlies team is very good. I just could not see them making it all the way to the finals the way that Thunder team did. One team that many people believe will make it all the way to the finals and make it out of the West is the Phoenix Suns. They made the big trade for Kevin Durant, but he's barely played for them due to injury. This is a team with a lot of playoff experience on it, though. They have Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton, a trio that recently made it to the NBA Finals. This is the type of team that makes it to the finals. They have the experience. Kevin Durant is a 2-time Finals MVP. I mean, this one is all going to come down to the health of Kevin Durant, and even then there is some question. I mean, Kevin Durant did not look very good last postseason for the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, he was one of the reasons the Nets got swept out of the postseason postseason by the Boston Celtics. So what kind of Kevin Durant are you going to get? Even a healthy one might not be enough here. But I definitely give them a chance over the feel-good Sacramento Kings. Like, this is another team I'm talking about. The Kings have De'Aaron Fox. They have Sabonis, one of the best big mans in the league. They're a nice story. They haven't made the postseason since 2006. But is anyone out here really believing the Sacramento Kings are going to make it out of the West? And that's why I look at the West and I say it's wide open, because a lot of the teams at the top of the conference are having stellar regular seasons, but they are teams that are inexperienced and haven't been there, and those aren't the teams that usually excel when it comes to the NBA playoffs. I mean, how many times have we seen it, a top seed going out early because they haven't been there before? I mean, that's what happens in the NBA, so I prefer to go with teams that have experience, like the Phoenix Suns and like the Golden State Warriors. Again, a lot of teams in the West are very good, but they are unproven. Steph Curry is the type of star who you don't want to bet against. He's a safe pick to at least make it to the conference finals, and I think he's a safe pick to make it out of the West. I mean, all season long, the West has been without a great team in my mind, while the East has had the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics, two teams who have already made it to the finals. In the case of Milwaukee, have won. In the history of the NBA and the track record of it, a team usually doesn't come out of nowhere. Now, the Denver Nuggets are a team that has been to the Western Conference Finals, so you should look at them on paper and view them as a title contending team. But one of the reasons I don't, and it goes back to this idea that they only have one superstar. Jamal Murray has not taken that next step. He's had the injury issues, and all season long they've just been super consistent, but I don't find them super impressive. They have one player in Nikola Jokic who would have to carry them all the way to the NBA Finals, and I think that's asking too much in a league where other teams have multiple stars. Like, who would you pick in the playoffs in a matchup between the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns? The answer is clearly the Phoenix Suns. They have all the experience going to the NBA Finals. They would have Kevin Durant, they would have Chris Paul, they would have Devin Booker, they would have the more talented roster. I think talent wins overall in the postseason more than it does in the regular season. I think the teams that win in the regular season are the teams that stay healthy, their stars play most of the games. Like, Nikola Jokic doesn't miss games, he doesn't rest, he plays every game, in part because the Denver Nuggets need him to play every game in order to win games. Like, a team like the Golden State Warriors can come out of nowhere. They can rest guys. Like, Steph Curry is going to turn it on come the postseason. We've seen it time and time again. Klay Thompson is going to have games in the postseason where you are reminded why he's one of the best shooting guards in NBA history. Yes, that 9-29 record on the road looks terrible, but you can't bet against their experience. Draymond Green is going to play better in the postseason, although he had a rough one last year. I think he's going to excel come postseason time. Jordan Poole, maybe the team gets Andrew Wiggins back. Even if they don't, I view the Golden State Warriors as a bigger threat come postseason time than I do the Denver Nuggets. I think it's easy to go the Nuggets are the number one seed. They're going to go further than the 6-seeded Warriors. And yes, history would have you thinking that, but look at what happened last year. The Phoenix Suns won 64 games. We all believed they would make it to the conference finals and eventually the finals. They didn't. They got eliminated in the second round. Seeding does not mean that much to me when it comes to postseason time. Experience does. And my belief in the Golden State Warriors is higher than my belief in the Denver Nuggets. And I'm in the majority on that one because NBA history has you always picking the team that has been there before. Steph Curry has been there before. Nikola Jokic is great. He might win his third MVP, but until he wins the NBA Finals, I'm not going to have belief that he's going to do so. Experience means a lot in the NBA. I mean, there's still people out here who are talking about the Clippers and the Lakers, and you know why they look at those teams as real threats? Because of LeBron James, because of Anthony Davis, and because of Kawhi Leonard. These are guys who have won in the NBA Finals, so whenever these guys make the postseason, they have that cachet. They make you believe in them. The Lakers have just just gotten to 500, and still people view them as a bigger threat in the postseason than they do the Denver Nuggets. And it's because of LeBron James. Experience is everything when it comes to the NBA playoffs. You don't just come out of nowhere and win the NBA Finals. I personally don't take either of those teams seriously. Yes, a LeBron James team is always a threat because they have that experience because of Anthony Davis, who is now playing out of his mind, but that team is not talented enough to even beat these inexperienced teams. And when it comes to the Clippers, I'm just done believing in them. Remember when those two got together and we thought we were going to see the best backcourt defensively in NBA history? That has just not been the case. So I'm done believing in the Paul George and Kawhi Leonard tandem. One of the reasons I wanted to do this topic on the podcast was this idea of who do you believe in come postseason time? The Golden State Warriors or the field to come out of the Western Conference? And I personally believe in the Warriors, and I think most NBA fans believe in the Warriors, and for a good reason. They just won, beating a Boston Celtics team who may be more talented than them at this point, but the Warriors have that NBA Finals experience, and until somebody takes down the Warriors, I'm going to put my belief in them. They have Steph Curry, the best point guard in the league, the best shooter in league history. They have Klay Thompson, who's always clutch. They have Draymond Green, one of the best defenders in the league still. And they have Steve Kerr, a head coach who has 4 NBA Finals. He's experienced way more than these other head coaches. Like, who are you going to put your belief in? Steve Kerr or Mike Malone? Steve Kerr or Taylor Jenkins? And that's not saying anything against these other coaches, but the experience isn't just about the players. It's about the coaches as well. The Warriors have been there and done that. The regular season just isn't as important to the Warriors as it is to these other teams. I mean, the Sacramento Kings have literally not made the postseason since 2006. That was what their goal was. I just cannot fathom a world where the Sacramento Kings make it all the way to the NBA Finals. That just isn't going to happen. Even though they are a higher seed than the Golden State Warriors, nobody really views them as a threat. Another reason why I give the Warriors an excellent chance to make it back to the finals is because the West isn't as good as we thought it was going to be at the beginning of the season. I think a lot of people thought the Minnesota Timberwolves would be a lot better. And yeah, they've been without Karl-Anthony Towns for most of the season now, but that just isn't working out. The Rudy Gobert trade is going to go down as one of the worst trades in league history. Then you have the Dallas Mavericks, who in season traded for Kyrie Irving. I think a lot of people made way too much out of that trade. Luka Doncic is a great player. Kyrie Irving is a great player. That didn't mean that those two players would mesh, and clearly they're not, because the Dallas Mavericks have slipped in the standings. They are not going to go past the play-in if they even make it that far. Like, a lot of the teams in the Western Conference are just underwhelming, and I think for years it was the West was the dominant conference. Every year you could bank on the Dallas Mavericks winning 50 games. You could bank on the Phoenix Suns winning 60 games. You could bank on the San Antonio Spurs being a dominant team. Like, these teams are just not very good. I like the Sacramento Kings. They're a great story. They're not a great team. The Memphis Grizzlies are a good story. I just don't think they're a great basketball team. I think the West is without one great basketball team, and that's why you look at the Warriors and you go, maybe they're not at their top level like they were in the past, but they still have something over these other teams. None of these teams are having me feel like this is their time to make it to the NBA Finals. I felt better about the Denver Nuggets in the past. I don't think this is their best season. They are just the number 1 seed by default. I mean, they're not there. They're not going to win 60 games. They're not a dominant team. They're just consistent. And I think there's something different between a consistent team that wins during the regular season and a great team. And I think we all know the difference. It's why still so many people view the Golden State Warriors as a great basketball team, because of not only their legacy, because we know what they're going to do in the postseason. We know they're going to take it to that next level. Do you believe that Ja Morant is going to take it to that next level? No, because you've never seen it before. And yes, there are special circumstances where teams come out of nowhere and make it. But make it to the NBA Finals is a different story. I could see the Grizzlies making it to the conference finals. I think to make it to the finals, we would have had to have seen something to make you believe they are a great team in the regular season, and I think the Grizzlies are lacking that. There are currently only two teams I could see making it out of the West, and they are the Phoenix Suns, who have Kevin Durant. I think if Kevin Durant comes back and plays like the Kevin Durant that we all know he is, then the Phoenix Suns have a great chance, because Kevin Durant would not have to carry the team. They also have Devin Booker, who I think would light it up during the postseason. You have Chris Paul in a lesser role. They also have backup point guard Cameron Payne, so they wouldn't have to rely that much on Chris Paul. You also have DeAndre Ayton, who I think would thrive with Kevin Durant more consistently in the lineup. The problem with that team is their defense, and then it would come down to their depth, because they're not as deep as they were when they made that jump all the way to the NBA Finals. And then the other one is, you already know this, the Golden State Warriors, the current dynasty in the NBA. You have to give them a better chance of making the NBA Finals over the Sacramento Kings, the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Denver Nuggets. You'd be insane to believe in those teams over Golden State. You're just not going to do it. You just saw last season the Golden State Warriors win the NBA Finals. It doesn't matter that they're not winning 67 games anymore. They are who they are at this point. They are winners. It doesn't matter how great they are in the regular season. Yes, the Sacramento Kings and the Memphis Grizzlies might beat them down in a regular season game, but do you believe in those teams to beat them 4 out of 7 times? I certainly don't. So if I had to pick the Golden State Warriors or the field to make the finals in the West, I would pick the Golden State Warriors, and I don't think it's revolutionary to say that. A 6 seed has only won the NBA Finals a few times. You saw the Houston Rockets won. That was a back-to-back with Hakeem Olajuwon. There's still some regular season left. I mean, there is a chance that Golden State can get all the way up to the 4th seed. Now, if they get home field advantage in the first round or the second round, then I could see them making it all the way to the NBA Finals. Yes, I would admit them making the NBA Finals as a 6 seed is going to be hard. I think eventually they will get higher than that seed. I could see the Warriors being the 4th seed, playing better by the end of the regular season, and then making that playoff push and making it all the way to the NBA Finals. The way I see it is it's going to be the Warriors versus either the Celtics in a rematch or the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't see the 76ers making it to the finals. I know Joel Embiid has had a great run, but he's unproven in the postseason. I think you're going to see proven teams make it to the NBA Finals. These other teams are nice stories. The Grizzlies are a team on the rise. I could see them winning in a few years. They're just not there yet. The Denver Nuggets, they're unproven. They could make it to the Western Conference Finals. I don't see them as an NBA Finals team, and I certainly don't see the Sacramento Kings making it to the NBA Finals in their first playoff appearance in over 14 years. That's just not going to happen. They're going to have to get some playoff experience before that happens. You might be listening to this podcast and asking yourself, does the regular season even matter? And to a certain extent, but when it comes to a team like the Warriors, it really doesn't. They've been there way too often with each other. I mean, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson have been on the Warriors for more than a decade now together. They've won 4 rings. They have Jordan Poole. They have a nice roster around them. They don't need to be the number 1 seed to make it to the NBA Finals. These other teams might be the number 1 seed. The Denver Nuggets just don't feel to me like a team that's going to make that jump. Now, if Jamal Murray plays like he did in the bubble, I could see it happening. But Nikola Jokic is not going to carry the Denver Nuggets all the way to the NBA Finals the way that Steph Curry could carry the Golden State Warriors all the way to the NBA Finals. The fact that the West is missing a great team is leaving the door open for the Warriors, who are a lesser seed, to make it back or even win the NBA Finals. That is how I feel about the current climate in the Western Conference. There is no great team. The Golden State Warriors are not a great team this season, but their greatness in the past and their 4 NBA Finals have me believing in them way more than these other teams in the Western Conference, and I think you should all feel the same way. The Warriors or the Suns are clearly the teams with the best chance to make it out of the West, and I give the edge to the Warriors. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.